Hi, my name is Victoria Seed, and today in this 10 at 11, we're going to be talking about the questions to consider if you are living with another person's addiction and domestic abuse, whether you have ever considered it to be domestic abuse or not. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about this. So, I help women who are living with a loved one's addiction. And sometimes, quite a lot of the time, there are also problems around abuse, um, domestic abuse, emotional abuse. There's all sorts of things that correlate with substance use. Um, there's usually emotional manipulation, but today we're going to be talking specifically about this topic. And I just thought about a few questions that might be worth you exploring. And it is a really sensitive issue, this. So if you feel like you need any help and support around this, please feel free to drop me a message. It doesn't matter whether you want to get my help or not. That doesn't matter. There's a link there on the screen, which will also be in the link to where you're seeing this video, and some other useful links as well. You can come and join Not My Addiction and it's a free community for women living with somebody else's addiction. So please come and join us, because you will get help and support there, whether you want to share. Whether you're living with domestic abuse or not is up to you. So there's no pressure, but there's just such value in feeling like you're not alone. So the first question I want you to consider around this is, do you believe their substance use is an excuse for abuse? So I have been in an abusive relationship, and I truly believed that because when my partner drank, he was violent, and that was the pattern of behavior. There was other forms of abuse. However, when he drank, that's when the physical abuse occurred. And we're not just talking about physical abuse. However, this was nearly 20 years ago. But now I know, through my training and my work and my professional expertise, is that substance use is often used as an excuse for escalating levels of abuse. So if you think about it, if your loved one, and I'm kind of referencing partners here, but we know that anybody within a relationship can abuse another person. So it can apply to child to parent abuse, some of this stuff as well, or other types of abuse from family members. But I'm going to kind of keep the focus on a partner for this session. So from my professional expertise, I know it's just used as an excuse. Substances can also be used to get a partner intoxicated, so there's more control over them. And also, what I was told was that, you got to think about, are they going around abusing anyone else? Because we think that it's when they're out of control, and it isn't. It's very much within their control, and they are intentionally choosing to abuse you as their partner. And this is something that I had to learn myself, because I thought you can't think because you're in toxic stress. So it's very difficult to think rationally and strategically, but think about how abusive they are to others. They may cut people off, they may be arrogant, rude, but they're probably not abusing them to the level that they're abusing you. Okay. So the substance is often used as an excuse. Substances are not the reason for the abuse. The person is that's choosing to do the abuse. Number two, do you keep telling yourself it's not that bad? It's not really abuse. There's people worse than I am. This is what I thought, that person worse than I am. I'm not that sort of person. I am a professional woman. I was teaching in a prison when I was experiencing my abuse, and I stigmatized myself and ashamed myself. And it was very, very difficult, because I didn't want anyone else to know, which fed into the secrets and the lies, and it just enabled the abuse to manifest itself really even more. And I'm not blaming myself, by the way, and I don't want anyone else listening to this to blame yourselves either. the person to blame for abuse is the person doing the abuse. So if you're thinking it's not that bad, it's not really abuse, I would urge you to just read up about domestic abuse, what it is, what the signs are, what the symptoms are, if you feel you can. Because if you can, you'll realise that if you're thinking that, then there's probably already a problem. Number 3 feeds in really to what I've just said. Do you understand what domestic abuse is? So this is a Women's Aid definition. Women's Aid defines domestic abuse as an incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading, and violent behaviour, including sexual violence by a partner or ex-partner. These incidents can include coercive control, psychological and or emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, harassment, stalking, and or online or digital abuse. So there's a lot more there than physical abuse. So if any of those things sound familiar, just go and have a look. Women's Aid website is amazing. All of these websites have a safe option to leave so that your exploration isn't tracked in your history as well, which is a really positive thing. Number 4 is the perpetrator accepting responsibility and accountability for the abuse. So I've managed services in the public and voluntary sector, and I'm a safeguarding trainer and consultant as well. So what we need to think about, well, what we think about in a professional capacity is the perpetrator accepting responsibility and accountability, and more often than not, they do not. You know, there's excuses, there's victim blaming, there's all sorts of stuff going on. So I'm not asking you to ask them that question because it could put you at risk, but just think about whether that's happening. You may well see a pattern that I saw, like, you know, the day after a physical incident, which was always when he drank, because that was the control, that was the excuse. The next day would be apologies and what felt like, you know, it would change. And I even got the timing, it was always. So the next morning there was still chaos and abuse going on. But then at 3 o'clock the next day, the apologies would start coming in. And the apologies came from the fear of me telling people. I know that now, I didn't know that then. So it was another element of control. It was an emotional manipulation tactic. So yeah, usually you know when, if they're taking responsibility and accountability, because they go and get some help. And there's a helpline called Respect for Perpetrators of Abuse that people can ring and get help and support, can go to GP, stuff like that. So if you're not seeing that after these incidents of I'm sorry and all of that sort of stuff, they're probably not taking any real responsibility. It's probably just emotional manipulation, in my opinion. Number 5, do they blame trauma and mental health for the abuse? So this happens a lot. Don't fall into the trauma trap is something that I'm talking about a lot with my clients around the substance use element of this, but it applies to this as well. You know, there's loads of research. Check out Dr. Jessica Taylor's stuff. She writes all the time about this stuff. And it's never okay. It doesn't matter what you've been through. You can't then just go around being abusive to other people. That isn't okay. It's no excuse, categorically no excuse. Don't make excuses for their behavior because they have experienced trauma and abuse. Yes, there's a correlation between environment and our own behavior. So what we're brought out in might impact on the way we are, but it doesn't mean it's a reason. Okay. Number 6, are your children being affected? So children are always affected by living with parental conflict. There's been a big drive over the last 5 years around the impact of parental conflict on children. Funding has been given to local authorities, but there's a difference between conflict and abuse. And there's a very fine line between that. But domestic abuse always has an impact on children. So no matter how much you think you're hiding it, the mood in the house, the reactions of people, the fear, the tidying up, You know, even victims can end up neglecting their children as a result of the abuse because they're in toxic stress. It can be really hard to focus on parenting and other things, and that is understandable. So again, this is not your fault, but it is, unfortunately, for people seen as a child protection issue and a safeguarding issue. Now, that can feel scary, but what I would say is, you know, if you are in this situation and those services get involved, it is beneficial to have other people keeping an eye on the perpetrator of abuse and supporting you as somebody that is being abused. Okay. So please don't be scared of that. Number 7, are you able to create a safety plan? So perhaps, you know, what I say to my clients is just pack a bag with important documents, leave it at somebody else's house or in a work locker or wherever, so that if anything happens and you do need to go, you've got some emergency stuff for you and your kids if necessary, to keep yourself safe. And again, if you feel like you are unsafe, please don't hesitate to contact emergency services. I know it feels scary. I know that because I've been there myself. But nothing is worth risking your safety, your children's safety, if you've got them, you know, just because you're worried about what's going to happen or getting them into trouble. And I know that from experience. Okay, so please use your emergency services. And there is guidance on Women's Aid again to create an emergency safety plan. If you want to go through that with me, I'm more than happy to give people my time to talk through this. I'm no expert in domestic abuse. These services that I'm talking about are the experts, but it is a big part of my work and I've had training on it and I've experienced it as well. And number 8, can you think about getting some help and support? So I'll drop the numbers in for National Domestic Abuse Helpline and Women's Aid. And before anyone says anything, this is directed to women because I work with women. There is also men's support as well, but I'm not talking about that today. So if you need help, please, you know, with your loved one's substance use and associated problems, please come and join the community. Just search Not My Addiction in Facebook. It's amazing. It's full of wonderful women. And don't be alone. Please reach out for help if you can. It's not your fault. Do not blame yourself for any of this. The person that is perpetrating the abuse, they are to blame. And if you can reach out for help, if it feels okay to do it, please do in any capacity, even if it's at work, even if it's, you know, on a helpline at your GP, anything. People are trained to deal with this. So yeah, don't be alone. I was in my relationship for 2.5 years, which is a relatively short time compared to what other people experience, but that was long enough. You know, that was long enough, and luckily I got out of it. So speaking from experience, lived experience, speaking from professional experience, hopefully, you know, you might be able to consider these questions and find a way out of your situation, or at least get some help. Okay, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.